The old sign loomed before them. It was almost swallowed by the overgrown weeds and vines. Its once vibrant colors were faded and peeling. The words, "Welcome to Joyland," were barely visible. But even in its dilapidated state, the sign held a strange allure. It whispered promises of forgotten laughter and long-gone thrills. The five friends stood there, captivated. They were on the edge of an adventure. They had heard the rumors. Legends whispered about this abandoned amusement park. It was a place frozen in time, a place where echoes of the past lingered, and now they were about to step into its forgotten world. Mark, the self-proclaimed leader of the group, was the first to speak. "This is it, guys. This is the place." His voice was a mix of excitement and apprehension. He pointed towards the rusted gates, barely hanging onto their hinges. "Joyland," whispered Emily, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and fascination. "It sounds so happy." There was a nervous tremor in her voice. She couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't quite right. Mark pushed against the rusty gate. It groaned like a wounded animal, protesting their intrusion. The sound echoed through the eerie silence of the abandoned park. A shiver ran down Ashley's spine. She couldn't help but feel like they were crossing an invisible line. They were entering a place where they didn't belong. They stepped onto the cracked asphalt pathway. Weeds sprouted between the cracks, reclaiming the land. The air was heavy with the smell of damp earth and decay. A strange silence hung in the air, broken only by the rustling of leaves and the distant cawing of crows. It was as if the park itself was holding its breath, watching their every move. "This is creepy," whispered Jake, his voice barely audible. He felt a cold shiver run down his spine, despite the warm summer air. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. "Come on, scaredy cat," Mark taunted, pushing past Jake. But even his bravado couldn't completely hide the unease in his voice. He too felt the weight of unseen eyes upon them. The pathway led them deeper into the heart of the abandoned park. As they walked, they passed remnants of the park's glorious past. A carousel stood frozen in time, its horses caught mid-gallop, their painted eyes staring blankly ahead. The once vibrant colors of its carousel were now faded and peeling like old skin. The calliope, silent now, seemed to be holding its breath. It was as if it was waiting for the music to start again. Next to the carousel was a booth with a faded sign that read, "Prize every time." The shelves were bare except for a lone, dusty teddy bear missing an eye. It was a haunting reminder of the joy and laughter that once filled this place. "Can you imagine this place filled with people?" Ashley asked, her voice barely a whisper. She tried to picture families strolling along these paths, children with sticky cotton candy fingers, the air filled with the sounds of laughter and screams of delight. "It must have been amazing," Emily breathed, her eyes scanning the scene before them. She picked up the teddy bear, its fur rough against her touch. For a moment she could almost hear the echoes of children's laughter. Section 4, the Ferris wheel's shadow. They rounded a bend in the path and the Ferris wheel came into view. It stood tall against the backdrop of the darkening sky, its skeletal frame casting long, eerie shadows that seemed to stretch out towards them like grasping claws. The once brightly painted carriages were now rusted and creaking in the gentle breeze. They swayed slightly, like pendulums marking the passage of time. The Ferris wheel had always been Mark's favorite ride. He remembered riding it as a child, the wind in his hair, the world spread out beneath him like a colorful map. Now, looking at its skeletal remains, he felt a chill run down his spine. It was a stark reminder that even the most joyful places could be touched by decay and forgotten by time. "Let's go closer," Mark said, his voice betraying a hint of nervousness. He couldn't explain it, but he felt drawn to the Ferris wheel. It was as if it held some unseen attraction, beckoning him closer. "Maybe we shouldn't," Jake said, his unease growing with every step they took. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching them from the shadows of the Ferris wheel. "This place is giving me the creeps." Section 5, Whispers on the Wind. They moved closer to the Ferris wheel, their footsteps echoing in the silence. As they walked, they noticed something strange. Scraps of faded posters clung to the rusted metal supports. The posters were weather-beaten and torn, but they could just make out fragments of images. Clowns with grotesque smiles, a trapeze artist hanging precariously from a high wire, a magician with an intense gaze. The wind picked up, swirling around them, carrying with it the faintest of sounds. Whispers, murmurs? They couldn't be sure, but it was enough to send shivers down their spines. "Did you hear that?" Emily whispered, her eyes darting nervously around. She felt a cold hand grip her heart. "Hear what?" Mark asked, trying to sound brave, but he couldn't help but feel a growing sense of unease. He too had heard the whispers, faint and indistinct like the rustling of ghosts. "I thought I heard voices," Jake said, his voice trembling. He scanned the shadows, half expecting to see something emerge from the darkness.